Hello friend, and welcome back to Donia's Plants with Donia. You may have guessed it, but yes, I am Donia. So today I want to talk to you about peace lily care. These are the 3 peace lilies that I have in my house right now. I think at one point I had about 5, and I just really enjoy them. Their foliage is always different, even if they're the same type of plant. So really quick, I'm going to introduce you to my 3 peace lilies. You all know Serenity. We met her during my last video when I was showing you about bottom watering. She's a little bit perkier, but she always has this one stem that's just, I don't know, just hanging out over there. And this is, I believe I named this one Mona. Yeah, this is Mona. She's in a bucket because she's being watered right now. And she's a regular old peace lily. You can see that, she has no variegation in her leaves like Serenity does, but they still have that same pattern on the foliage, if you can see. And she is sprouting a few new leaves. There's another one here on this side too. And yeah, some of her leaves are looking kind of spent, like they want to be done, and that's okay. And then my last peace lily, I named this peace lily Jesse. He also has some foliage that I'll probably trim off during this video. Some of it's just really small, kind of older foliage. This one's older as well. So it doesn't always mean something's wrong with your plant when the foliage is ready to go or looking spent. But again, you can see the differences in the foliage between Mona and Jesse, even though they're both regular peace lilies. All right, so let's start off with watering. Now, people tend to have a love-hate relationship with peace lilies because they are very, very vocal with their needs, which makes them seem really dramatic. Excuse me. When a peace lily needs water, when it's dry enough, it will wilt. And I mean, to the point where it looks like it's completely flat. All of the foliage will look like this. And it often makes people freak out because they're thinking, oh my goodness, what did I do to my plant? Yesterday it was totally fine and happy and perky, and now it looks like it's on its last leaf. But I like that most about peace lilies because it's really easy to know when they need water. The tricky thing about them being so expressive with their foliage is they will wilt heavily when they need water, when they're really dry, and also when they've been overwatered. So when you pick up a brand new peace lily, make sure you check the soil. If it's really, really wilted, check the soil first to find out what end of the spectrum it's on. If it's been overwatered at the nursery, not typically the nursery, usually at stores like Home Depot or Lowe's or other kinds of stores like that, you gotta make sure you let it dry out completely before you water it again, because like I've mentioned before, overwatering leads to root rot, which leads to killing the plant. When a plant is underwatered, if I were to leave Jesse for a couple more days and let his foliage continue to wilt, he may lose a couple pieces of foliage because his roots are trying to find water wherever it can. But once I water him, he'll be okay. So underwatering, you may lose some foliage. Overwatering, you're going to damage the plant's root system, which essentially kills the whole plant. So as you can see with Mona, I bottom water my plants. This basin was something I used to use for my son's baby dishes, just a regular little plastic basin. I filled it about 3/4 of the way with water. I don't know why it's uneven. And I'm allowing her to soak and absorb all the water she needs. Yeah, so I water my peace lilies when they say they need it. My leaves are so dusty. It's been really windy out here, and Jesse's right next to a window, so his foliage is dusty. Anywho, I water my peace lilies when they're dry, when they begin to wilt. Because I need to trim these pieces, this isn't wilting for Jesse. More of his foliage would begin to wilt if he needed some water, okay? When it comes to light needs for peace lilies, like most of the plants that we have as house plants, peace lilies are tropical plants. So they like bright indirect sunlight. I have Jessie over next to, if you remember the pothos that I spoke about in my last video, Greta, the little marble queen. They're right over there in front of a south-facing window, maybe about 3 feet away from the window, just so that there's room for the blinds, and they're on a little table. So bright indirect sunlight for peace lilies, no super harsh direct sunlight. And now we can talk about foliage a little bit. Often on peace lilies, I see dark spots like this, or dark tips like this. I believe the dark tips are from lack of humidity. It is very dry in my house because I live in a desert, but it doesn't seem to hinder the plant enough for me to get a humidifier or anything like that. I only run the air conditioner in my house from about 7 p.m. to maybe 5 a.m., so only through the evening. And none of my plants are directly under any of my air conditioning vents. So that helps, because that air that's coming out of your AC vent or out of your heater vent is very, very dry. So that could really damage your plants if they're just randomly getting blasted by that super dry air. However, I know that plants, just like people, just experience things. I don't typically let foliage that looks discolored or things like that really deter me. Maybe Jessie could use a little bit of water. Deter me or make me feel as though my plant is dying. Usually a good examination of the foliage, looking at the soil, especially the underside of the foliage, looking for pests and things like that, is the best way to determine how healthy your plant is. But again, when it comes to plants, the roots are the heart. So as long as the roots are healthy, then your plant is solid. You may have some pests going on in your foliage and things like that, and you want to eliminate them because the plant can't photosynthesize without foliage. However, if you cut a plant all the way down and give it some time, it will regrow foliage, you know? So don't freak out too much if you see things happening. Just do your best to get to the root of the problem. When it comes to these pieces, I'm gonna cut them all the way down at the base as low as I can. You can see this entire piece of foliage is yellow all the way down to the base. So I'm gonna just use some regular plant scissor shears and just cut them down. This one is pretty dunzo as well. It's already pretty crispy. Cut that one off. I will be cutting these off because even after I water Jessie, these ones don't perk up. So I'm just going to get rid of them. May not necessarily need to, but it's not going to hinder the plants at all to just get rid of some of these dry, crunchy pieces. Where is this one coming from? This one looks like it was trimmed, but not all the way. And now I'm just going to town. And Jessie typically tends to be my peace lily that loses foliage. I haven't trimmed Mona very much at all. I haven't trimmed Serenity very much at all. Well, no, I lied. I trimmed Serenity. Maybe it's just because they are so much taller than Mona. You see how much shorter her foliage is compared to Jessie. And I'm not sure why. This is just how they are. Some of them are shorter and some of them are taller. I really don't know what the difference is. So we went over watering, we went over lights, we went over just some information that I have on foliage. Propagation for peace lilies has to be done by division. It cannot be done by doing anything with their blooms or flowers or anything like that. It can't be done by taking a piece of foliage and sticking in water. It won't work. If you look closely at Jessie, I could divide him there and create 2 different plants. If you uproot your peace lily and gently separate those sections at the roots, that's how you propagate a peace lily. That's called division, by uprooting and separating the clumps of foliage. And I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything else. As I mentioned before, I don't typically fertilize any of my plants. However, I'll talk about the flowers. Going to a local nursery and getting something that's called oh man, what's it called? Worm castings, which is worm poop. Yes, it is a slow release fertilizer, looks just like dirt. And what it is they put earthworms into somewhere where they have food, and essentially an earthworm is just a straw. So it consumes the food and then poops out the poop, and that's what's nutritious. So that's what worm castings are. I like worm castings. I totally forget about them, honestly, because they're slow release fertilizer, so they're not going to damage your plants. If you fertilize your plant with something that's too strong, it's going to burn the roots because it has too high of a concentration of whatever nutrients are in it. What's it called again? Worm castings. I keep wanting to say peat moss. That's something else. Worm castings are awesome because you can dig up the dirt a little bit, maybe even just poke a few holes, put some worm castings in there with like a spoon. Like I said, it looks just like dirt. Cover back up and you're done. And you can do that for all of your plants. Or you can use a liquid fertilizer and just put it into the water whenever you water your plants. I've heard some great things about liquid fertilizer. And again, your houseplants aren't going to struggle if you don't fertilize them, as long as every once in a while they're getting new soil with plant food. But I have heard if you'd like your plants to grow more quickly or grow more abundantly, especially during the growth season, like right now, spring and summer, using fertilizer will help with that. Side note, peace lilies have flowers. You can see that both Jessie and Serenity both have blooms right now. Jessie's bloom is turning green, which means it's on its way out, and both of Serenity's blooms are still nice and white and pretty. These, I don't know what they're called, but these little pieces in the middle will start to release white dust. So I thought that Jessie had a pest one time because I moved him, I think, to water him, and I saw some white stuff on his leaves, and I'm like, oh God, what is that? And it was just sprinkles, maybe it was pollen from his bloom, totally normal. When the blooms turn green, brown, black, that just means they're spent. It has nothing to do with the health of your plant. You can trim them here, you can trim them here where they come out from the foliage, and all is well. No harm, no foul. Okay, I think that is all for Peace Lily Care. To recap, when it comes to watering for peace lilies, I water when the soil is dry, typically when the plant begins to wilt a little bit. When it comes to lighting, I have all three of my peace lilies in bright, indirect sunlight, a couple feet away from the window. When it comes to their foliage, brown spots or brown tips can indicate a lack of humidity or a lack of moisture. But again, it doesn't hinder the overall health of the plant, so it's up to your discretion if you'd like to increase the humidity. Most of these houseplants are tropical, so they're used to that type of environment. Another thing that helps increase humidity is just having your plants all next to each other, which all of my plants are in groups, so I'm assuming that helps. When it comes to propagation, peace lilies have to be propagated by division, not by sticking any of their parts in water or sticking their blooms in water. That doesn't work. It has to be done by division. And if you'd like to use fertilizer for your peace lilies, you're more than welcome to. Always fertilize your plants as they're actively growing. Most plants grow in the spring and summer, but there are some plants that grow in the fall and winter. So only fertilize your plants while you're noticing active growth. You can use a liquid fertilizer, something general to put in the water every time you water your plants, or you can use something like worm castings that you can sprinkle and work into the soil for each of your plants, and then water and treat as normal. All right, my friends, so that is all for today. I forgot to mention it in the beginning, but if you found this video helpful or educational or anything, go ahead and leave me a thumbs up, leave me a like. If you have any questions, suggestions on plants you'd like me to cover, please leave it in the comments. If I have the plant, I'll be more than happy to share what I know about that plant. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you find these videos helpful, or if you like them and you want to be notified when I release new ones. I will be posting videos every Wednesday and Sunday. So make sure you hit the bell in the notification section so that you can be notified every time I release a new video. That's all for today, friend. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time.